guys, it's Cece, and today I am here to do my April wrap-up. No, you are not hallucinating. My hair does look like this right now, but I was just filming another video and I didn't have time. I didn't have time to redo the hair. It had to happen. So keep an eye out for a really exciting video next week that will explain the hair. If you have guesses as to why my hair is curled, let me know down in the comments below. Also, yes, I'm in a new location. This is tentatively where I will be filming from now on. It's kind of a mess, but I did move. Look, I'm in a new location. Everything in my life is a mess right now. But anyway, today I'm going to be talking about the 5 books that I read in the month of April. Yes, 5. Still counting it as a win. Still hoping that eventually later in the year I will speed up a little bit. It's fine. In April, I also participated in one readathon, Prideathon, and during that readathon, I read a grand total of 2 books. As far as some of my goals for the full year, sometimes I remember to do these, sometimes I don't. I have a goal every single month to do a variety of things. The first is to read an adult release, which I did. The second is to read a 2018 release, which I did. And the third thing is to read a book from my top 12 TBR for 2018, which I also did. So, I'm doing okay. My goals are still all getting checked off every month. But without further ado, let's get into reviews for the 5 books that I read, starting with the one I liked the least and working up to my favorite. The first book that I'm going to talk about that I read in the month of April was Chord by Chelsea M. Cameron. This book in basic premise is about 2 girls who become random freshman roommates at college. They are both sure that they're definitely straight until they start to fall for each other anyway. I love Chelsea M. Cameron. She wrote Style, which is one of my favorite really fluffy, light FF romances, and I liked this one just about as much as I liked Style. It was a lot of fun and it was really cute, and I think that this one was boosted a little bit more in my eyes because I lived this story when I went to college and I met someone and I was like, I'm really sure I'm straight, and then our sophomore year we moved in together and then I realized I wasn't straight and I was in love with her, so like I lived this. I think sometimes this got a little too overly cheesy for me. I love a good contemporary romance, but sometimes I was just like, this is so cheesy, and I know that that works for some readers, but for me, every now and then it just took me out of the story because I was overwhelmed by the cheese. But I do think that this was a really cute book. If you're looking for more female-female romances that are allowed to just be sweet and charming and without tragedy, just 2 girls falling for each other, please read Chelsea M. Cameron. She has exactly what you're looking for. This also featured some great side character rep. Stella and Kyle from Style were both present and are great. Both of them are queer, one of them is disabled. There are also some new characters introduced, one of whom is non-binary. My favorite aspect about this book is honestly that at the end, and I'm not spoiling any particular plot developments, but at the end, neither girl has chosen a label for herself, and I feel like that isn't something that I really regularly see in YA or any queer lit at all. They are still questioning, they're still figuring themselves out, and a label can come later, or maybe it's not necessary. I just thought that was really refreshing to see. So, if you're looking for awesome queer rep, a great romance, all of that with a little cheese, then I definitely recommend Chord. And I wound up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I want to talk about is All Out, the no longer secret stories of queer teens through the ages, edited by Saundra Mitchell. This is an anthology of stories by queer authors about queer teens throughout history, basically. It's all kind of right there in the title, but that's what it's about. You guys know I've been hyping this book for a very, very long time, and it was, I think, my favorite anthology that I've ever read. Anthologies aren't generally my thing. I've liked them, but haven't loved them. This was my favorite one that I've ever read. It was really nice. If you want a full breakdown about all of my feelings, I wrote a very detailed review, as I do with every anthology, and I will link that down in the description below, but I review every single short story, give it a rating, and at the end, when I counted them all up, my average rating was about 3.6, and I rounded up to a 4 stars for this. My absolute, by far, standout favorite story was The Inferno and the Butterfly by Sean David Hutchinson, because it was basically making the prestige gay. Like, it was battling magicians, England, but gay. incredible. I also loved Molly's Lips by Dahlia Adler. I've never read anything by Dahlia Adler before somehow, but it was a great story. What were my other two favorites? Oh yeah. My other two favorites were The Secret Life of a Teenage Boy by Alex Sanchez and Healing Rosa by Taylor K. Mejia. This was a great collection. My only real complaint was that there weren't any stories set outside North America and Europe. I think it would have really benefited the collection if there had been some stories set other places. I think it would have helped to get a few more different cultures involved, a few more characters of color involved, but I did still really like everything that this did. It was wonderful, and like I said, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is Nevada by Imogen Binnie. I have been trying to read this book for like 2 years now, and I finally did it. It was definitely worth it. Nevada is about a trans woman named Maria living in New York City, and then in one day she is dumped by her girlfriend and fired from her job. There's also a road trip element to this book, a journey of Maria just kind of going out and trying to figure out why she experiences life from the outside, but honestly that doesn't happen until a decent way through the book. And that's what I'm going to let you know right now, is that Nevada is a very internal, meandering kind of book, and I don't know that it will be for everyone, but I really liked it. Thing is, I know that you guys know that I read a lot of queer lit, but a lot of it falls under the same umbrella of being intro, or it just doesn't get into some of the nitty-grittier aspects of being queer. Now, I can't fully understand Maria's journey because I am cis, but this is an Own Voices story, and I think that it comes through because it's not a story with a plot, it's a story about a trans woman who has been out for a long time, just trying to figure out what it means to be trans and to go through life being trans. There's a lot of drug use, a lot of maybe not necessarily healthy behaviors, but it comes down to being a character study about this woman figuring out what she's doing and how she is supposed to fit into society. Plus, it super gets into being a trans woman who's attracted to other women, which is an intersection that happens in books but doesn't necessarily get discussed. So much page time is dedicated to how intersecting identities work. I just thought that this was a brilliant book. I think that it ends on a note that initially I was kind of like, it just ended, where was the ending? But it fits with the rest of the story. It's just a snapshot of a moment of a person. And I really liked it for that. And I wound up giving Nevada 4 out of 5 stars. Next up we have Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kann, which I am so beyond thrilled to have finally read. This is a library copy because I originally read it as a library book, but I did go out and purchase my own copy. It's just in a box in storage, so you get the library copy. Let's Talk About Love is about a girl named Alice, and at the beginning of the book, she is dumped by her girlfriend for being asexual. Yes, that is a brutal way to start, but this book is delightful. So basically, after this happens, Alice totally swears off romance. It's not something that she wants to be interested in. She's just finished her first year of college, so she's going to spend the summer hanging out with her friends, watching TV, and working part-time at the local library. And then, at the library, Alice gets a new coworker named Takumi, and they instantly click. They have so much in common, but Alice doesn't want to put herself out there because she doesn't want to be hurt again. This is an Own Voices book about a black, biromantic, asexual girl, which is like so many identities to be juggling at once, and this book does it brilliantly. And I also think it emphasizes so well elements of mental health that I think gets pushed aside in some other books. Like Alice regularly starts going to see a therapist over the course of this to figure out more how she identifies, how she's feeling about her friends and her life, and I was just like, oh man, I don't really read a lot of YA where a character sees a therapist, and I just barely started seeing a therapist a couple of months ago, so I appreciated seeing that rep because it took me a long time to be willing to go to a therapist. This was an adorable book, and I think it's a book that I could have used a few years ago. Just speaking from my own personal experience, I think that it would have really benefited me to have access to this book a couple of years ago. I think it will benefit a lot of people to have access to this now. It's not only a great breakdown of sexuality and the split attraction scale, but also about friends growing apart and being in college and maybe not agreeing with your parents about where your future is going. Plus, the relationship between Alice and Takumi was fantastic. I loved every part of this book. It It was just really, really sweet and fast. I read it in 2 sittings maybe, and I wound up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I mean, I think it should say something that I read this book and then immediately went out and bought my own copy. And my number 1 favorite book that I read in the month of April was Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Yes, I finally read this. Yes, you were all right. It was delightful. Radio Silence is about a girl named Frances who has only ever been defined by her intelligence. She's studying constantly, getting ready for university, and she spends all of her free time making fan art for a podcast that she loves called Universe City. And then, out of the blue, Frances gets a message from Radio Silence, the personality who hosts Universe City, asking Frances to do some official art for the podcast. Simultaneously, she becomes friends with the boy across the street named Aled, who, as it turns out, is secretly Radio Silence. They spend the summer becoming best friends, working hard on a passion project, and questioning the futures that have been set out for them their entire lives. The main character of this book is biracial and bisexual. There are also multiple queer side characters, some of whom are people of color. There's a side male-male romance that gets me. Plus, this book uses the word demisexual on page, and one of the characters identifies as demisexual. This is another book that I feel like I wouldn't have been able to handle when I was younger, but also I really could have used when I was younger. It perfectly captures that feeling of transition between high school and going to college. It's terrifying, it's horrible, and sometimes you feel like your world's crumbling around you. And all of that was represented here. Like, I graduated college. I've finished, I'm done, and still so many of the feelings in here hit me so hard because I recognize them within myself. I recognize them as feelings that I experienced while I was still in school. My favorite part of this book was easily, though, the central friendship between Frances and Aled, because the book goes out of its way to have a chapter where they're like, I know that you're expecting because there's a girl and a boy in this story that they're going to fall in love, but they aren't. It's just going to be about them being friends and dealing with the things going on around them. It was fantastic. I desperately want to read more of Alice Oseman's books, especially I Was Born for This, which I believe just came out. What? I already have access to I Was Born for This? I kind of want to go back now and read Solitaire, which was her first book, which I remember hyping on Tumblr, even though I never read it, which is bizarre to think about. That was years ago. But I loved this book. It made me cry. It captured fandom. It captured being terrified about your future and about feeling like your only identity is your intelligence. It's just really, really good, and I wound up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Okay guys, that is it. Those are all of the books that I read in the month of April. What did you think of these books? Yes, it was weird. It was like I had a mini Pride in, like, not June. I read only queer books, and it was delightful. It made my heart feel happy. But let me know what you thought of them if you've read any of these books down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!